Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. You already know who it is. Your host, Justin, and I'm joined today by Nico. Nico, how you doing?
I'm on the edge of my seat, man.
Oh no.
Edge of your seat. That makes sense. Dan, how you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling pretty possessive today.
Pretty possessive, huh?
Hey, you take what's yours, goddammit.
I will.
Speaking of
You take what's yours.
Speaking of being damned by God, we are going to be watching and reviewing
Wow.
1988's Night of the Demons. This was directed by Kevin Tenney, starring Kathy Podwell as Judy, William Billy Gallo as Sal, Amelia Kincaid as Angela, and Alvin Alexis as Roger, amongst others. Oh, but before we get into the overall plot, I do have some news to tell you about some friends of ours.
Wait, hold on. We have friends?
I've always
Yes,
wanted
we
a friend.
do. We made a friend here today on the podcast.
Oh,
Like created like Frankenstein style? That's fucking badass.
I'd probably be into that too. So if you guys do have a moment, be sure to check out our good friends, Grindhouse on 42nd Street. You can go ahead and find them on Twitter at Grindhouse. That's GRINDHAUS 42ND. That's Grindhouse 42nd. They're also on Facebook at Grindhouse, all one word, on 42nd Street.
what kind of things do they do?
Well, they've got a podcast. Nico, when their podcast come out again, sir?
Well, my boys at Grindhouse got to stay on their grinds and in their house because we're on that coronavirus quarantine
fire.
shit. So they typically have episodes on Mondays and Tuesdays, and Thursdays they've got a Grindhouse radio. And you like what they do? Just give them
Cool,
a
where can we
follow.
listen to their stuff?
You can check them out on Spotify and Apple or outside their house if you're fucking weird like
Inside
that.
their house.
Oh shit, take it to the next level. Yo, what's good? I'm in your house.
Hey, yo, what
Don't
up?
Open That Door does not endorse meeting anyone.
Breaking and entering.
We strictly suggest you just give them a follow and support their endeavors. And shout out to those guys, man. They have some pretty cool stuff on. They've got Serial Killer Academy, bunch of really cool stuff.
crimes.
Oh my God. Anyhow, those guys are awesome. Please give them a follow if you get a chance. We were talking about Night of the Demons from 1988. 1988 was a pretty, not that I can remember, wasn't alive, but 1988 was a pretty good memory. Dan, how was 1988 for you?
Pretty much the same. I think some cool stuff happened though. Friday the 13th Part 7 came out.
Wow.
Beetlejuice came out as well.
Well, anyways, this movie starts out pretty simple. It's Halloween. The year is 1988. Hopes and dreams of America are still alive. And we've got some high school kids who ditched the dance to go party at this old funeral home. We've got Angela, who's a little bit of a witch. And they've got some other friends. Dan, where were those other friends? Who were they?
So we got Angela, who's kind of into the occult. Her friend Susan, who's pretty just thirsty the whole movie. We've got Max and Franny, who are two friends who
They're
are
a couple, aren't
they're a couple, yeah.
They're definitely a couple, yeah.
They're friends of the main characters, I guess, is what I was going to say. I don't even know how to describe them. They don't have too much of a personality, in my opinion. They're just kind of there.
Nope.
Then there's Sal, who is introduced as sort of one of the sleazy, almost bully kind of kids. Jay and Judy, who are sort of the two main characters, if there is one. And Stooge, who's the resident asshole. Helen, who I don't really know.
Helen
she
was there
is.
too.
I think she was
Yeah,
a
she
friend of
just there.
Stooge.
Was she? Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know if she was much of a friend because he continually harasses
Was a piece
her,
of shit to her.
berates her. And then there's Raj. But he's also the only one who has any sort of sense in this movie.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's our cast.
There you go. So they eschew, and that's a vocab word for the day, kids. Not that any kids should be listening. And they go ahead and head out to a funeral parlor because that's the most lit place possible to have a Halloween party. Nico, so I'm assuming this place is fixed up, right? It's a nice looking spot.
No, it looks like the fucking meth house or something. Like, they go in there and there's cobwebs everywhere. There are boards all over the windows. There is just like a bunch of debris and detritus and just a whole bunch of shit just cluttering the halls. And it is very clear that no one has lived here or even visited in quite some time. This is not a place where you would go and take your family for a nice, little family get-together afternoon jaunt in the park kind of thing. No, you fucking avoid this place, which, by the way, it's up all the way on a really tall goddamn hill. So, like, they had to work to get there.
I don't know, Nico. I'd say that people are, they're dying to get in there.
Boo.
I stayed quiet so the audience could clap.
Yeah, and there's also one more thing that the movie made a lot of trouble, or went through a lot of trouble to say. They really wanted you to know that there used to be a stream around the house.
Correct. And that stream will come back to have very little relevance later on. So
Yes.
we're going to keep on moving. And in fact, they also describe some weird things that happen in the house. Apparently the guy who ran the house, and I'm going to have to censor myself here, he used to make love to corpses, Mr. Hull. And then also I think someone in the house went crazy, killed everyone, and then committed suicide.
Can't imagine why.
The house is kind of creepy, and it's next to a graveyard too. It just checks all the boxes. So Nico described how the house was in pretty much disrepair. That's no problem at all, because within about 5 minutes, they fix up the living room area, or an area, a room, and they have a pretty rad party. But then the music cuts off and they decide to have a seance. Unfortunately, that was the wrong move to make. When they do the
As
seance,
it always is.
they start getting possessed. And you ever see the movie It Follows?
No,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
Wait.
actually.
Yeah,
I like
I
that
have.
much more than this movie.
Well, hear me out. In the movie It Follows, not to put any spoilers, we won't say anything else, but the entity or whatever it is spreads through sexual contact. In this movie, the demon is spread most of the time, not all of the time, but like demonic entities and shit get spread through kissing, which lets you know about inspirations, right?
Yeah, but that's not how it actually, that's not like the rule for how it gets spread, though.
It's not the rule. It's not. It's not a hard
Happens,
line rule. It's
Once?
just a really
Twice?
Happens twice.
three
yeah.
times. Three times.
Oh my.
3.
Yeah. We'll get to that. But so everyone eventually gets it besides Roger and Judy. And surprisingly, this movie completely eschews the trope, not completely, but it's not just the last girl anymore. There's also a last boy. They both survive till the break of dawn, and they manage to pass by a stream that you never actually see, but it's underground. They survive and they make it out. So that's the movie in a nutshell. Now let's go ahead and get down to the nitty gritty. First off, the audio and visuals, right? What do we think about how this movie looks?
It's how there's a really like misogynistic trope of a joke where it's like, oh well, that girl's really ugly, but at least she's funny. Well, this movie is neither beautiful nor funny. It's just fucking bad. Like, the cinematography, if I could even call it that, is awkward in the best of times and just real unintentional shaky cam the rest of it. There was, in the opening 5 minutes of the movie, we have a scene which has an old man who sounds an awful lot like Bernie Sanders, but isn't as cool as Bernie Sanders, who keeps getting snuck up on by like 5 different people, and all the while the camera is flying around this guy like a fucking UFO having a seizure. And it's not much better from there on out. There are times when there are overhead shots in extremely awkward corridors, and it's just fucking bad, man.
Dan, thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree that a lot of the visuals aren't great. I will say I did like a lot of the violence in the movie. I thought some of the kills were kind of cool and the effects there were okay. I did notice that a couple of the scenes earlier on, when they were trying to kind of like spook you out and think maybe there was a killer there, or when there actually was a killer, the ghost, or not ghost, but like the evil demon kind of thing, sometimes it would take on the first person perspective from them.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting because we had talked in a previous episode about Friday the 13th and how they did that in that movie as well. And that was not necessarily the first, but one of the first kind of ones of that era to really kind of usher that in. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Sure enough. For my 2 cents, I didn't think this movie looked that bad, to be honest. Definitely some limitations for sure, but I thought to me it looks like a standard. I don't have a problem with it. I like it. Audio next. So Dan, how do we feel about the audio in this movie?
Shit. There was. I mean, sometimes it was fine, but I don't quite understand how it happened. I tried to figure this out, but it seemed like through some of the dialogue and some of the ADR and everything, there was a lot of like phasing issues and
Yes,
like
thank
weird
you.
slapback.
Oh my
delay
God,
kind of
I
thing.
wasn't insane.
No, that definitely was there. And you'd hear like a car door close, but it was like a slapback, so it sounded like you were in like a bathroom or
Holy
something. It
shit,
sounded really
Justin,
weird.
I was texting you about that.
Yeah, and a lot of it sounded kind of like in a tin can, that sort of sound. And then other times it just like wasn't there. And I don't really understand how or why. But yeah, that kind of threw me off, especially as an audio person. I was kind of distracted by that a lot.
I didn't get that text because my phone only allows positive messages. But
Okay.
I got to give props as, try to weigh negatives with positives. Can we give props to that amazing intro soundtrack that was so good they let it run for 3 minutes?
The joke is that it was a fucking crime scene of an intro.
I actually like the intro. Forget Nico. I actually like the intro. I just think the intro maybe went on for a minute and a half longer than it needed to.
It was like a fucking performance art piece, the intro itself. Like, I was questioning what was happening in my life. Like, why am I sitting here?
Well,
I became very aware of my own breathing in and out. Like, I learned that I had to manually control my blinking. Like, I suddenly felt alone in the world. It's like, fuck, man.
Well, here's what I'll say. They were really proud of one particular transition where they take an animated pumpkin and they rotate it up, and then that animated pumpkin fades and becomes the real pumpkin for the start of the movie. I don't know what to say.
Well, I just want to say two things really
ahead.
quick. Not about the intro, but one, I have to say this because I didn't get the chance to for the visuals. There is a scene, and Dan, you'll probably be able to back me up on this. There is a scene where there is, I think it's Angela, who is the super like witchy one, where she is dancing for a solid 5 minutes straight.
Oh, yeah.
And in the middle of it, there is a cut that is painfully clear, like she transitioned from 1 millisecond to the next in a different part of the room, which made me laugh quite a bit because the only reason I could think of is that like the actor fell down and they just wanted to cut it or something. And
I think that's intentional.
I don't think that's intentional.
It happened like 6 times, maybe more. Like they kept cutting.
Well, yeah, but like this one in particular was not done in what I could tell was, and from an artistic angle, it was just like, oh fuck, I hope they don't see this. But like there were other points that was just the most jarring thing, and every single time the demons come out, it is the exact same sound effect. And it's just flange and phase to all hell. And it's just like, come on, guys.
See, I don't even know if that... Well, some of that like flange, that phasey kind of stuff, I couldn't quite tell if it was a purposely done
or not.
Because sometimes it was on the music or like sound effects, but other times it was on like sometimes it was on like added sound effects, but sometimes it was on like the real captured live sound effects.
Dude, yeah, like the floor had reverb when she was crawling on the floor. What the fuck was that?
Right. I don't know. It was kind of weird.
I think that was kind of meant to, set you into I can see I'm gonna put up my shield here, but I think that was kind of, meant to kind of get you in a certain vibe. I think she was almost enwitching Sal in that scene. There's a scene where
Enwitching.
It's a
bewitching, motherfucker.
No, enwitching.
Enwitching.
So because she's not a witch. So if it's like she's possessed and then she starts dancing to metal, which we all know is the music of the devil. And well, to be fair, the metal song she was dancing to, what were they chanting? Like something about
some Latin shit, because always it's in Latin.
No, but it was about, what's the word? Oh God, stigmata. I think they were chanting about that.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I know. So
thanks.
Yeah, guys, they're talking about this one thing it always happens, but I don't know what it is. So, yeah, there you go.
But no, so Yeah, she was just doing this really enwitching, entrancing dance and, giving like revealing twirls of her robe. And Sal, had the wherewithal. Sal's the real OG. He was like,
No, he's
you're acting
not.
kind of funny. You're acting kind of weird. But yeah, no, so that's what Nico's talking about, just to paint it in its glory. So speaking of glory, what kind of horror is this? So I've seen online it's described, as, oh, this is comedy horror. I've also seen it as, they play it straight. It's just a, supernatural horror film. Do you guys think there's enough comedic elements here to say that, oh, it's a comedic horror film?
Not quite. Would there be such thing as like teen horror? Is that a
Oh,
thing?
for sure.
That's where I would
Yes.
put it at.
But teen, though, I almost feel like it's aimed a little higher up.
Well,
Are you sure about that?
I mean, when I say that, I mean kind of like if you think of like American Pie and like that would be a teen movie or whatever that would be. I'm thinking of that, but horror.
I would put those in the same wheelhouse, yeah. I have a feeling Justin's going to vehemently,
Oh, I'm sure he will.
in fact, disagree with me.
Vehemently.
Behemothly. Bewitchingly. Enwitchingly, perhaps.
I will succinctly orchestrate my defense. So I don't know. This one's kind of interesting to me because it does, have all the trademarks of a traditional, just regular old horror movie. Like the plot itself is not very creative, right?
Mm-mm.
A group of basically lustful teenage or age-ish people go to a haunted location and, hijinks ensue. So I do think that that's not really breaking any tropes there.
Now, you did bring up a good question.
What's that?
Now, you said a haunted location. So they do say in the movie, it's not haunted, it's possessed.
So is that a
true.
poltergeist? Or like, is that not the
I
same
don't
thing?
know. See, I was going to say, because they say that a haunted house is when people have died there and they are haunting it. Whereas
Correct.
a possessed house is when not that nobody has died, but the things that are, for lack of a better word, haunting the place have never been alive in the first place, aka demons.
Correct.
So I've never heard that before. Not that it's not real or whatever, but is that a thing? Like, do other movies, is that like a thing in lore / real life?
As far as I know, that's a heap of shite.
Okay.
I never heard of that in my life.
Okay.
Is that a poltergeist though? Like, isn't that what that is? Or am I misunderstanding the lore?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have lore like other films got lore. But
Well,
I'll tell
I mean,
you
like the
more lore.
nature of a poltergeist. Yes, that. The nature of a poltergeist. Isn't that like some sort of like possessed or otherwise like enwitched object, if you will?
Yeah, a poltergeist is essentially just when a malicious or mischievous spirit occupies like either an object or a residence entirely, typically speaking.
Okay. Then yeah.
So
Then,
yeah, I guess this
okay.
would be poltergeist. Yeah.
Although for me, this falls more along the lines of like demonic possession, which is typically the frame reference to Christian horror or, like The Exorcist, that kind of thing. Because the demon, comes from hell to possess, someone and all that jazz. But in any case, so are we saying this is a straight supernatural horror? How are we defining this one exactly?
I would kind of just put it at horror. Like I feel like
Just
it's not
catch-all.
comedy. Yeah, I feel like it's not comedy enough to be comedy. It's not supernatural enough to be supernatural. It's just horror. And I don't mean
Okay.
those in a bad way. I think it's just horror, I guess.
All right.
I don't know how else to say it.
The way I think about this is, and follow me here, this is going to be a bit of a thought experiment. So the way that this plays out, and I feel like you two in particular will be able to agree with me here because we have a history of this.
Challenge
It
accepted.
plays out like a board game almost. Like it's almost like you're at, Haunted House of the Hill where we've got like you're the main character, Judy or Raj, depending on the scene. And it's like you go into a hall. Inside, an event happens. There's a strange metal door. Do you open it? roll a die. Oh, it happens to be an oven or something like it. It just seems like a series of incidents strung together. Like the plot here and the kind of identifying features of it that would mark it within a certain genre seem to be more just like connecting the dots than it is any one unified whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I oftentimes find that that's actually a sign of, you can say that about other things. And that's where I would argue that this maybe wasn't necessarily the best written in terms of plot, because there's not really a huge overarching theme so much as you're right. There's basically just encounters until people, escape. So now to kind of cut down on being too harsh here, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to keep your answer, if you can, to 1 to 2 words. 3, maybe. Dan, how's the acting in this movie?
Gets better as people die.
Okay.
Because there's less of it.
Nico?
Agreed.
I think it fits purpose. Now, the reason why I say that is I think that it's a B horror movie, right? So I think that people don't go to see these things to get, the King's Speech, right? They go here to see dumb people die, for the most part.
I think that's why I liked it better when people started dying, because I think the actors were better at that. And I don't necessarily mean just dying.
They were better at dying.
But I mean, at the beginning, there was a lot of character development stuff, and I feel like the actors weren't very strong at that. But then when it got down to the horror parts of it, I feel like they were in their prime. That's where they were comfortable, and it felt better acted to me.
Okay. So speaking of people dying, how do we feel about the pacing? One thing that I don't like, so I didn't even realize there was like a bunch of people in this movie to die. They had a solid amount of people. 3 plus 4 plus 2.
That's 7. That's 9. Quick maths.
Quick maths. Like, I'm sorry, plus 1 more. 10. They had 10 people.
Out of 10.
They had 10 people there. And I feel like, I don't know, they all got possessed within maybe like a 20-minute span. Like,
I mean, yes, but I never took that as a problem with the pacing, more so just like, actually, no, I did take that as a problem with the pacing. Yes, no, you're absolutely right.
I feel like I liked it when they started going that quickly, partially because I feel like the beginning was a little slow.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
I guess part of the pacing I did have an issue with. Maybe 1 or 2 people die a little sooner, but I did like that they kind of died in a more rapid succession than
And
some
in
other
that,
movies.
like, I think there is honestly something to be said about this. Like, and this is something that I think is probably unique to horror movies, just because we get more of a sense of schadenfreude or pleasure at the pain of others in the horror genre than others oftentimes. I think there's something to be said about movies being purposefully written awful or with bad characters and just terrible people so that you root for all of them to die. Like, I identify with what you were saying there, Dan, because as this was going on, I was getting more and more, like, as I was getting less invested, I was kind of getting more invested, not because I gave a shit about the characters, but because it was more entertaining to see all the ridiculous shit that was happening, because I had an active dislike of literally everybody except for Judy and Raj were just completely irredeemable. Franny was okay too. But like, I don't think there's anything like that in any other genre of fiction, really. At least in film.
See,
and if that was intentional, I like it.
So I disagree with the point that they were all bad characters. I think they definitely might have, for me, Stooge jumps out as the character that they kind of wrote him to be like a boisterous asshole.
Definitely.
And, they even like, if it couldn't be hammered in your face anymore, he was wearing a pig outfit.
Symbolism? What's that?
So I think he, for one, was someone who they kind of pointed out as a quote unquote bad person, or a dislikable character. But I feel like a lot of them I actually quite like. I liked Angela. I think she was a little bit daft for having a seance, but I liked Angela.
Jay was a fuckboy. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean, Jay was that classic nice guy so long as he gets what he wants.
And also, why do you like Sal so much? Like, he's funny, yes, but
Well, hang on.
there's
I'll break
no
it down
way
for you.
he's the hero.
I'll break it down for you in a second. And I think Max and Franny, to be honest, they were like the most average of people. They were not. They weren't really likable or dislikable. Like they clearly went to that
just
party
there.
to hook up.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they went there to do.
Their problem is that they were just nondescript. They were bodies in a room.
More or less, they were bodies in a coffin too. So no, but I liked them for what they were worth because they are every good horror movie where you got to have a body count. You need some people that are just there, and they were there. So I salute them. No, and like her friend, what was it? Suzanne,
yeah.
Yeah, like she was cool. I mean, she might have been a little thirsty, but that's not a crime. And then, in fact, one of the characters that I disliked the most was in fact Raj. Now I'll explain why. Okay. Normally, I like characters like Raj. Normally, characters like Raj are Roger. Normally, I like them because they're scared. They're supernaturally aware, right? He said, "My father is a preacher. I know better than this. We should pray." Like normally, I was right there with him.
I did give him props for that.
I was like, yes, you should. But on the flip side, unfortunately, he was kind of a little bitch. When things happen, he just curled into the fucking fetal position. He grows a pair one time at the very end when he crawls up onto the wall to save what's her face, Judy, right?
Which spatially makes zero sense, but
on top
anyway.
of, I'm just gonna assume he summoned up like Captain Planet and jumped over the wall. But besides that, he only did that because he himself was in no danger there. Like they weren't gonna get him from on top of the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I would have left.
Well, we've already established in many previous episodes of Go Over That Door, Nico will abandon any and all friends. But no, like he kind of went back to save her, and that redeemed him a little bit in my eyes. But she was over here fighting dudes off with like a flamethrower, and
She was pretty badass.
he was curled into the fetal position. Bro, come on, man. Like, I don't know.
I'll give you that.
That's a
But-
good point.
In any case, I have to ask, is there a hero to this movie? Is there a heroine? Is there a good person? Is there anyone who you think could be categorized as a true protagonist of this movie?
I don't think so. Though I would only say Judy, and it's sort of weak to me, but I only say that because most of the film, at least the first
Centers around
half,
her.
is kind of from her perspective anyways. But I wouldn't quite go as far to say that she's a hero or protagonist or anything like that.
I was going to say, from my viewpoint, I think one of the closest characters of that is Sal.
How do you figure?
Because everyone talks about him like he's such a bad guy, but he's the most heroic of any character. When, keep in mind, there's a scene where Susan, she is possessed. And so she strips down a little bit, takes a lipstick, rubs it all over her body. And then he thinks she's on drugs. And he's like, "Are all you people on drugs?" And she's like, "Come here." And he's like, "Nah, that's not my scene. I'm going home." And like other people, as we saw, succumb to the temptation. 2 other guys fall to Stacy or Suzanne's temptation, but not him. He stays above it. Also, he saves Judy from the closet. Also, he saves Judy on the rooftop and actually gives his life to do so. He never hesitates to save anyone. When Roger's freaking out, he grabs Roger and is like, "Look, man, we'll make it out of here. Like, we'll do it. We'll make it out of here." So I think that if anything, he is the character that might have a couple rough patches at the start of the movie, but I think through the course of the movie, when put in the situation to be a hero, he becomes a hero.
He's still more of a side character than anything, though. Like, I will give you that he acts heroically, but I hesitate to call him a protagonist or a hero.
Normally, I would agree with you, but I don't think there's any other character in this movie that even displays a quarter of what he does, aside from Judy in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, agreed. I do agree with Nico, though. I don't know if I would go quite as far to say as he's a hero, but out of the if I had to pick one out of the choices, probably would be him.
Thank you. I'm going to tally this one in my notebook because I never win these arguments. So I'm going to tally this one. No, but also, so how do we feel about, now the movie has a pretty incredible ending scene. Just when you think the action is over, and of course the two characters who survive are Raj and Judy. So they make it out. They walk back home and we see there's an old guy that, Nico, I think, mentioned earlier on, who, he wasn't a very nice old man, despite the fact that the kids also weren't very nice to him. And his wife bakes him this apple pie. She's like, yeah, I was cooking it all morning. And basically she cooked him a good old apple pie with razor blades in it. And at the very end of the movie, the razor blades basically slit his throat and he dies. And, she's there smiling. And that's how the movie ends. What do you guys think about that? Was there a point to that, do you think?
I feel like there was supposed to be a point that I missed, because the apples with razor blades is a throwback to earlier in the movie when they first get to, when all the kids, I think, first get to the house.
Yeah.
One of the characters is like, oh, what kind of like games are we playing? And somebody else was like, oh, are you doing like razor blades and the apples or something like that?
Bobbing for apples with razor blades in them, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in that sense, I guess it was callback, but I really failed to understand how the old man and his wife, who we hadn't even seen at that point, are related to any of this at all.
I know at the start, he bought apples and razor blades to hand them out to people.
Oh.
So he himself put the razor blades in the apples. And so when his wife said, oh, you had so many apples left over, I just made a pie. And that's when he started to freak out. And I thought like her killing him was going to be an accident, but she sees the blood and knows it and acknowledges it. She knew there were razor blades in that pie.
Right.
So I don't know. For me, it's just one of those things where it's like, I like it more than the ending of like, the villain comes back. Haha, he wasn't really dead. But this is like, I don't know. I don't know about that. That was kind of odd. I liked it, but it was odd.
Yeah, it was very odd.
Any thoughts?
I mean, like, that grandmother was the best character in the whole fucking movie. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. I don't know, man. It was just a nice way to end the shit show du jour that was this movie.
I don't think this movie's that bad. But in any case, let's go ahead and get down to our favorite character in the movie. So everyone think about this assorted cast of characters. And in this case, I'm not going to make you choose just one. So go ahead and pick your number one and then your number two.
Oh, I was literally just going to ask that.
Yep. So
I was not.
So Nico, since you didn't want to ask, why don't you tell? Who's your favorite character and who's your number two?
So my favorite character is the grandma. Number two is the demon, honestly.
Okay. Nico with that.
I got some fire in my belly.
He's got the snark answer. Dan?
My two favorite characters are Max and Franny, because they have no real personality or no really character
purpose
for me to dislike.
Wow. Okay. I'll be a lone soldier here. So obviously, given my praises for him, my favorite character is Sal. My second favorite character is Angela.
Really?
I could see that.
I felt kind of bad for her, actually. If I had to guess, the reason why they all got possessed is the mirror. Like when the mirror, they did a seance with the mirror. And then when the mirror broke, I think that let some kind of demons out or some shit like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I felt bad for her.
Also, that mirror fell in super fucking slow motion.
Yeah.
Someone could have definitely caught that.
Yeah.
I will say as well, I thought she had, because they described her as a weirdo. No one wanted to hang out with her. But then it was Halloween night, who's throwing a
cool
better
kid.
party than the witch chick. So, I felt kind of bad, She seems like she would probably listen to some Evanescence, and I'd be down with that. Now, in terms of a favorite scene here, I'm going to call out some scenes, and you guys tell me if you enjoyed them or maybe if you have one of your own to bring up. So there's a classic scene where, what's her name? Suzanne. She takes the lipstick, she rubs it all over herself, and then she takes, now, using my eagle eyes, I noticed, because she's not wearing her shirt at this point, bare chest exposed, and I'm like, that looks a little weird. Doesn't look right, just from my layman's point of view. She takes, then I figured out why. She takes a tube of lipstick and shoves it into her nipple. Now,
reasons.
As far as practical effects go, I thought that was pretty cool. That did elicit a response from me. It was like what? But it was cool. I was like, oh, what? So yeah.
I will say, like, about that scene in particular, my favorite line in the entire movie came there. So Jay comes into the movie. He had recently ditched Judy because all he wanted her for was sex. And when he gets into the room with Suzanne, he sees that she's put lipstick all over her face, body, and chest and everything. And he says, "Now that's not a bad paint job." And I just bust out laughing.
I loved that scene. I started hating it because I don't know, I don't really like the whole like let me rub lipstick all over my face and get weird. But
It was only cool when Hannibal did it.
Right. When she put that lipstick in her nipple, that was so off-putting. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that happen before.
No.
You know, like, there's all these different, you know, I don't want to say classic tropes necessarily, but like, I feel like a lot of things that are supposed to be unsettling I've seen before, but I've never seen that happen before. And the music on that scene was dope. So I
liked
that
it as
scene.
well. And the last scene I did want to tell you guys about as well is, so Judy needs to defend a room. Her first instinct is to go for a pipe, pulls it out and notices it's a gas pipe. She then lights a lighter and gets a flamethrower out of that. Now, we all know that if you light, do not try that at home. Never try that anywhere. You're just going to blow yourself up.
Fucking die.
You will die. Yeah, like, surprisingly, I guess the movie let her get away with it and gave her a flamethrower. But I thought that was a pretty cool scene because I do think that was the first time she ever really did anything of note.
And it was one of the smartest things anybody in the movie had done.
Yeah, pretty true. Pretty true.
It's the first time that she did anything in response to the horror, at least.
Well, that's what I mean, because she spends half the movie locked in an attic. And then after Sal saves her, she runs around, lights the flamethrower, tries to climb the wall but can't, and then Roger helps her. That's what she does.
Yeah, pretty much.
So those are three awesome scenes, I thought. Did you guys have any other scenes that really stood out?
Yeah, there's one in particular that I think we should talk about. It happens pretty early on. Why don't you paint the scene for us, Dan?
So I think this is way before the party even starts. You get introduced to Angela and Suzanne, and they are at a convenience store getting supplies. And Suzanne, who is the thirsty one, is bent over trying to distract and successfully distracting the two kids at the counter. Angela can
they're not
steal
kids.
everything.
Let's not use the word kids here.
Still teenagers.
I think they're grown-ass men. The dude's got a full beard.
Young adults.
Why?
And she's definitely bent over and you can see pretty much everything. And the camera definitely lingers there for quite a long time.
So I'm glad you brought that scene up because I actually thought it was quite genius. Because in the way they film it, obviously, yes, right? Like they're trying to show you upper skirt, but you're just, it is kind of like almost like kind of mesmerizing. You're looking at it, it takes up the whole screen, and then you realize like that's almost like a metaphor because that's all those dudes could see.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that this camera was kind of like fixated right there and never moved for a good, like I want to say like what, like 10 seconds, if not more.
Yeah, probably a little
Definitely
more.
more than 10 seconds, yeah.
So like it was fixated there. I was like, okay, well, this is almost like egregious fan service. It's too much almost. But I ended up liking it because it was a honeypot. It was a trap. Angela took a whole bunch of candy and shit and just dipped out it's not a CVS. It's a local regional chain X. But yeah, she just takes it and dips, and the two, dumbheads are too distracted. We talked about some scenes. Now I want to give you guys some quotes, right? Some stellar quotes from this movie. I want you guys to give a very brief description of the scenario surrounding it and your rating of the quote. Ready?
Okay.
So we're going to start with this one.
You're putting an awful lot of faith in us,
I
bud.
know.
Bodacious boobs, sis.
Oh, son of a
Oh,
bitch.
no.
Who says that?
Oh my god. That's the main character's little fucking sister.
Brother.
So we've got,
Brother.
brother, God, yeah. Whose name I don't remember. He's not important. I wish he had died, but unfortunately he doesn't. We've got in the first part of the movie with setting up the sort of the scene, we've got Judy who is waiting for Jay to come and get her to go to the high school dance, guys. And she's getting dressed. She takes off her top and goes into her closet, opens the closet door, and her fucking little brother is hiding in there because he's a fucking creep. I don't know. And the first thing he says to her is, "Bodacious boobies, sis." Like, what the fuck? And that alone is why I don't give the lingering shot scene in the convenience store as much credit as you do. Because, like, I get what they're trying to do, like, show that the male gaze is, just can be really dumb and primal in an uneducated way. Yes, but like there are other times in the movie that really just overshadow that in a bad way, and that was a glaring example of that.
And given that, I'll give you this next quote. "I found it in my mother's closet. She used to be an acid head."
I don't even remember that one.
I do.
They bring a strobe light to their little dance
that's right.
party.
Yeah.
And the strobe light starts going, and then it's just like, yup. I was like, wow. So that was a
kind
pretty
of thrown out there.
Yeah. Now, Stooge, as we said before, does give Helen a hard time, but Helen does have a zinger for Stooge as well. She says, "Stooge, did you become an asshole of your own free will, or were you born that way?" I thought that was fucking class. That was a really cool quote there. But it does not top the very last quote that I have here. And let me see if I can find it. "Eat a bowl of fuck."
Oh yeah.
That came off as the kind of thing where there's clearly a mouth breather with a like room temperature IQ who's just trying to string together curse words and sound cool.
So it's funny that you say that because there is a little thing about that. It was actually remarked that John Belushi said while performing a comedy routine live on stage. So they borrowed that line.
I have a bonus one. You guys got sour balls?
Oh yeah.
Bet you don't get a lot of blowjobs. And that's what Suzanne said to the convenience store clerks on her way out.
All right, so I got a question for you, Justin.
Oh shit, what's up, bro?
If you were one of the characters in this house, what would you do?
Oh shit, he turned the tables on him.
The tables have been turned. Oh no. It's like a turntable.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah, no. So I would probably say, well, first off, if I was already in the house, right? Like I had already somehow agreed to go to this party. I'm already in the house. Now, for the viewers, I will say one thing. You can't just leave. It's not very easy to leave.
They tried.
The house casts a curse, and like there's a gate that you come in from. You can't get back through the gate. There's no gate anymore. It's just a brick wall. So you have to climb, and there's not always a place to climb. At the end, our heroes did manage to find some barbed wire somehow to climb up on, or an ivy that was very prickly.
Appeared.
Yeah. But in any case, assuming I couldn't just, run away, I would fight the demons. They didn't appear to be very strong, and they appear to be susceptible to physical attacks. And no one really tried to fight them. The demons always ambushed people.
Yeah.
I would maybe
true.
try to give them what for. I would find something in the house as a weapon. And they even said, "We need to find a weapon." And then
they didn't.
Yeah, Judy found the flamethrower, and then I would have just posted up there.
Yeah.
Like, I would have posted up there with my flamethrower, and as soon as they came through the door, just light them on fire. But yeah, and I would have waited it out because, and there is another thing to point out, right when our heroes escape, the demons disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Like sunrise was like 2 seconds away. So they literally, it was a waiting game. So I would have just waited it out. Dan, how about you?
My first answer, which is probably the cop-out answer, is I would definitely not have a seance. Like, I'm not about any of that.
That's some white people shit.
Yep, that's not happening. But especially in a funeral home where like creepy stuff happened before, no.
That's a no-go, amigo.
But for real, I would do the same thing you did. I would try to fight back because you're right. Like nobody until the end tries to fight back. Yeah, I would try. Go out swinging at least.
See, for my part, when we had the scenes where Raj was outside, there were inexplicably a couple of cars. Well, I guess they could explain because they drove there, but like there were a couple of cars there, and honestly, the wall didn't look that high. So what I would have done is I would have like stacked some boxes, pushed the car up to the wall, and just like yeet myself over the wall and just get the fuck out of Dodge.
But are you gonna do that with demons attacking you though?
Yeah, they're slow as shit.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys right now. We're going to go ahead and flip the script here. Without casting any numbers, did you guys enjoy this movie at all? Was it enjoyable for you?
No.
Not particularly. No.
Okay.
What about you?
I would have to say I actually kind of liked it. I don't think it's a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's something that's, critically acclaimed or anything of the sort. But I think it is, this is a B horror movie. This is what B horror movies were, particularly in the 80s.
I will say, like, at time of recording, it is April 20th, which, haha, whatever. And if you are of the persuasion to become in some way an altered state or altered, state of mind. Yeah, become enwitched while watching a movie. I think that it would be more enjoyable because you could laugh at this probably a lot more with just the absurd nature of everything. But even with that, it just was on the whole, to me, just not enjoyable.
You enjoy it a little bit?
I enjoyed it a little bit, but only like when I wasn't supposed to.
Okay. Well, the critics on Rotten Tomatoes got this one with a 40%. The audience score a little bit higher at 56%. So what do you guys think? You guys agree with the critics, audience, or you guys have your own opinion? Starting with you, Dan.
I agree with the audience. 56 is right about exactly where I'd put it. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. In my opinion, it started bad, but like I said before, I did enjoy it more once people started dying. So I'd say 56 is probably pretty accurate for me.
All right, Nico?
I would agree with the critics, if not be a little harsher, just because the level of acting in this movie was high school drama club level of bad. And the only possible redeeming factor is if it was written to be purposefully that bad so that we root for them to die. And if that was intentional, then cool, awesome. But if not, then insert raspberry noise sound effect here.
All right. I would actually give this one, in my book, a little bit higher than the 56. I'd probably give this one closer to a 60 to 65 myself.
Really? You would put this the same as other movies we've seen that got 60s and 65s from us?
Mm-hmm. I think that, well, keep in mind, right? I think when a movie sets out to do something really good and then fails at it, that it could be a bad movie. But I think if a movie never tried to be something great, I think if it, or when I say great, I mean something huge and sweeping, magnanimous. If it's something that, it is what it is. I think this movie is what it is. And I like it for it. I do acknowledge that there's just straight up like movie things that are wrong with the movie. I don't know. I think it has a certain level of entertainment. I can't say that, for example, I didn't like this scene where Max and Franny were in the coffin and he was like, I've never made it in a coffin. And she's like, me either. Ha ha ha. And they both start laughing. I was like, ha ha ha. But then, like Pig Boy comes over to, what's his name? Stooge. He breaks her neck in the softest way possible. And then I guess kills Max by closing the coffin on his hand too hard. So.
Which made no sense,
No.
but,
she does, to be fair, he does chop off his arm, but I don't know. I thought maybe Max would have run away or something. But in any case, I thought it was an all right flick. I thought it was an all right flick. Not nothing to write home about. But if I was, sitting down, if I was bored one night and this was on, I'd watch it and I'd get some enjoyment out of it.
Okay.
So judging from Nico's fire in his belly, I'm going to go ahead and assume that this does not get the Don't Open That Door gold seal of approval, nor does it get a recommend to a friend. Am I correct in saying that?
Definitely not, unless you are doing like a Mystery Science 3000 kind of thing or whatever the hell it is where you watch movies with the purpose of making fun of it. If you are trying to watch this with sincere enjoyment in your heart, you will be left as a shell of a man.
Okay. I disagree a little bit. Also, and this is one thing to note, Nico, I will say this. I think you didn't come up watching these kind of movies. So,
which I do recognize. I do recognize that, yeah.
So I do think, I also recognize that probably the same way it may not necessarily color you in its favor, I think it does color me a little bit in its favor.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate you saying that.
Because I do think that, because I've, particularly these older movies, there's so many of them. And once you start getting kind of back before Hollywood really started mass producing and pumping out really big budget horror, you had so many, horror movies just like this, where this was horror for the longest time. I mean, films like Friday the 13th and Halloween, those are few and far between. This is horror. This is horror from the 80s.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because I was actually going to say, to the standard Joe Schmo, I would not recommend this to. But if you're a horror movie fan, or especially like an older horror movie, vintage horror, if you will,
Vintage.
then I would recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty well succinctly stated. So do we have any last points to, get off our chest with all the lipstick before we shut the door on this one?
I finally found a movie that I like less than Child's Play.
Oof.
Really?
Yeah.
Granted, I will say for myself, I like Child's Play more than this, but it doesn't work out. The math doesn't work out the same way that it does for you. So,
Yeah.
All right. Dan, any last thoughts from you?
No.
All right. Well, that's been it from us here at Don't Open That Door. If you could please give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. We're at DOTD Horror. You can also find us on Facebook at Don't Open That Door. But in the meantime, ladies and gents,
Check out those guys at Grindhouse.
And please, everyone stay safe, keep yourself healthy, and don't open that door. Have a great night.